Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn how to create another view in Python. So right now we have created one view which is nothing but the home page, which basically is displaying this thing right here, which is nothing but this is the book homepage. Now what if we actually need to go ahead and create a brand new view? So in that case, let's learn the process once again, and also it will give you guys an idea that how multiple views could be designed in Django. So whenever you are deciding upon creating a view, what you could do is that the first thing which you need to understand is that a view can only be accessed, or a view is nothing but a web page. So in order to access that particular web page, you need to type in certain URL. So you need to decide what kind of a URL is going to redirect the user to that particular view. So in order to understand it better, let's go ahead and go to the urls.py, which is this file right here. So from this URL or from this file, you could make it that whenever the user is going to type in site name /books, it is actually going to prompt him to this URL, which is the books URL, book.urls file. So if you open up the books.urls file, as you could see, there is the view which is called as an index. So what happens is that every time the user is going to type in an URL, which is the website name /books, he's always going to get this view, which is the index view. So in order to check what is inside the index view, you could go to the views.py file, which is this. And as you could see, this thing right here is the index view, which basically displays this HTML code, which says that this is the book's homepage. So now what you need to do is that, as we need to create a brand new view, the first thing which you need to do is that you need to learn how to manage the URL associated with that particular view. So what you need to do is that you need to go to the urls.py for books, and obviously this URL right here is the normal URL, and now you need to decide the URL for another view. So let's say what we want to do is that when we type some URL like let's say the website name /book, or let's say books let's say the ID of the book. So you already know that each and every book which we have entered into the database has an ID. So let's say you want to enter an ID after it. So we want to design an URL pattern for this type of thing. So in that case, what you do is that you simply create another URL pattern. So you simply type in URL, and here you obviously need to type in R. This thing starts with a caret, ends with a $, and now inside here you need to create a group. So you simply give parentheses, then type in $P, and then you actually need to pass in something which basically gives you this number right here. So let's call that thing as book ID. So you express the book ID in between these two signs, that is the less than sign and the greater than sign. So you simply need to type in book ID, so book_ID. So right now at the moment we don't know what that book ID is going to be, but also you need to mention its range. So that is obviously going to be 0 to 9. So these are the numbers which are going to be included over here. And finally, what you need to do is that you need to include a plus sign over here. And finally, right before this $, what you want to do is that you want to make a URL which is something like this, and also you need to include a slash in front of this thing right here. So you simply need to give a slash right before the $sign, that is nothing but right before the URL ends. And now on receiving this type of URL, you actually want to redirect the user to a new view. So you simply give a comma and type in views.detail, and detail is actually a view which we are going to create. So right now we have not created the details view, but we are going to create that very soon. So simply give a comma and type in name equals detail. So as you could see, this URL is very much similar to this one right here. The only difference is the URL pattern. So whenever you actually want to type in a URL pattern or recognize a URL pattern of this form, you simply type this type of regular expression, which is going to give you a URL like this. Now you simply need to give a comma at the end, save the code, and the next thing which you need to do is that, as now this thing is redirecting you to the details view, if you go to views, as you could see, there is no details thing right here. So you need to make your own details view right over here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we type def detail, and here you need to pass two things. The first thing is obviously going to be the request. So you type in the request here, and the next thing which you need to pass in to this details view is the book ID, which is mentioned right here. So make sure that you pass this thing in. So you type in book underscore ID. So after receiving this, what this function is going to do is that it is going to return an HTTP response as the index function did. So in this HTTP response, we actually need to return a few things. So in here we type in, let's say, details for book ID, and then you need to type in an actual ID, and that ID is present into this variable right here, which is book ID. So you simply need to display that thing up here. So you need to come out of these double quotes, give a plus sign, type in str because that is going to be a string, then type in book ID, again give a plus sign, again in double quotes you need to type in /h2. So this is the basic HTML code, and what we have done here is that we have basically returned this HTML along with the book ID, which is returned right here. So that's what we are going to return over here, and make sure that you have spaces over here. Okay, so once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. Now let's go ahead and run the server. So python manage.py run server, and hopefully it doesn't give us any error. And once the server is running, now what you need to do is that now you need to go to the URL, which is /books/2. So if you open up your web browser and if you type in /books and /2, we actually got an error, and let me check why the error is there. Okay, so there was no error. Actually, I have typed in the URL incorrectly, because the thing is that I'm recording this on a very big screen which is far away from me, because I have like a mic in front of me, so I was not able to have a look at that. Okay, so once you go ahead, go to books, this is going to appear as usual, and if you again go to the URL and type in books / some ID of your book, so let's say if you type 1, hit enter, as you could see this says that details for book ID 1. So if you replace this 1 by, let's say, 2, as you could see, this thing says details for book ID 2, and if you replace this thing by 5, as you could see, it says details for book ID 5. So we have successfully created this new view, which is the details view, which basically gives us the details about the books. So the next thing which we are going to do here is that on this book's homepage right here, instead of having it empty, we are actually going to populate it with the list of the books which we have in our database. So right now we have 2 books. So what is going to happen is that those 2 books are going to be listed over here, and when you click a particular book, it is actually going to redirect you to the details page which we have designed. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you guys were able to understand how a view is created. So the very first thing which we need to do is that we need to decide that upon entering what kind of URL do you want to redirect the user to that particular view. So depending upon that, you simply go to the urls.py file. So in this case, we need to go to the urls.py file of books. So in here, you define the URL pattern. So we actually wanted a URL pattern of this sort. So we have defined it in terms of a Python regular expression. And once we have this URL, you simply give a comma, and you need to define the view which you want to give out when the user requests this URL. So we actually wanted to display them the detail view. So we have simply passed in views.detail. So if you go to views, there was actually no detail view. So we have created that detail view which accepts 2 parameters. The first parameter was the request, which any of the function accepts, and then we have basically returned a book ID, which is nothing but the ID of the book, and we have returned this HTML code into that particular response. So whenever user types in that particular URL, he will be given this kind of response. So that is how you could go ahead and design your very own second view in Python. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.